Okay, so well, let's just go ahead and dive in. And why don't you share your incredible story of your shared death experience?
Okay. Well, in 1997, my husband Ian was diagnosed with lymphoma cancer. And after a 7-year battle, including 3 stem cell transplants and multiple rounds of chemotherapy and radiation, unfortunately, he passed away. And the interesting thing about that night is we actually had hospice come in and they assessed him and they said he really looks good. It's probably going to be at least 2 weeks, if not 6 weeks, before he passes away. So even though obviously he was on a trajectory of the end of his life, the night that he actually died was kind of shocking. And actually the children, I had an 8 and a 10-year-old at that time. They were 1 and 3 when he was diagnosed and 8 and 10 when he died. So it was a long excursion, a journey. And so they had gone to sleep somewhere else that night. My daughter went to a friend's house. My son went to Ian's mother's house. And then Ian's brother and best friend actually arrived that night. And so it was the first time I was not the only adult in the house with Ian. And I truly believe he chose that night to leave because, again, the kids were out of the house and I was not alone. They had given us morphine. So I went in and kissed him goodnight. He was actually it was so interesting because up through that week, he was still very much with us. And then on a Wednesday, we were told there was nothing more to be done. And then on Friday, he woke up completely incoherent. And that's when I'm like, oh my gosh, things are happening. And so Saturday, hospice arrived, like I said. And so that Saturday night, I gave him a kiss on the head and gave him just a little bit of morphine. He was in severe pain after having a procedure done on his ribs. And so then I went and lay down in my daughter's bed and I prayed to God and the angels. And I was very religious. I was brought up Lutheran and believed that if you weren't baptized, you were going to hell. And I was very concerned about my husband because he had not been baptized. And I begged and pleaded with him and he just thought it was all nonsense. And so it was concerning to me. And so I just said, please, God, help us. Let me know what I can do. And I laid my head down on the pillow. And the next thing I know, I left my body and I was escorted by 2 angels that took me, and all I can say is to heaven. It was exactly the way I thought it was, portrayed in my belief system. It was this beautiful golden castle with platinum roads and walkways. And the thing that was so surprising, it was just so clean and so pristine and so crystal clear and bright and beautiful colors that I cannot even describe because we don't have them here. And there were trumpets playing and an angel choir singing. And this announcement was over this big loudspeaker: the Grand Mr. Ian Sharp is about to arrive. And that was my husband's name. And so I was with these angels kind of walking down a corridor, and I could see at the end that when I looked over the edge, there was a big courtyard and all of these souls were coming and gathering and talking, and they were so excited. And I could feel their anticipation of his arrival and their excitement around it. And so just as this giant door started to open, all the souls all turned at the same time to look, and they're like, he's here. And just as he was like stepping through, I didn't actually see him, but it was like I could sense that his foot was stepping into that courtyard. All of a sudden there was, Doc, Lisa, wake up. And it was his brother. And he came bursting into my daughter's room and said, oh my God, Ian's just taken his last breath. And it was like a trap door opened and I fell back into my body. I remember physically falling into it, and just, it was almost like when you bounce on a trampoline, that kind of reverberation or whatever, where your body just kind of jolts. And that's what it felt like. And I jumped out of bed and I had such a mix of emotions because, I mean, number one, I was so elated because I was just in this beautiful place where, he was being welcomed, and the unconditional love and the anticipation and the extraordinary welcome that he was receiving was beyond anything I could imagine, especially because he hadn't been baptized. And my biggest fear was that he was going to hell. So I knew that he was okay. And yet I'm like just being told that my husband just died and I'm supposed to feel horrible and sad. And I mean, I still had 3 living grandparents at that point in my life. So I really had not experienced death and I didn't know how to feel, but I was super excited. And yet I knew it would be inappropriate to say to his brother, like, oh my God, I'm so excited. That's just not the right thing to say. So I ran down to our bedroom and there he was, there his body was, but it wasn't him. I could tell that was just literally a shell of his soul, and that his soul was gone and that it was just that body. And I didn't really have any affinity. I mean, it was just, and it's interesting because I've interviewed over 100 near-death experiencers, and they all say when they look back at their body, it's like they look at it like, oh, it's an old shoe or it's a piece of clothing just on the floor. And that is very similar to the way I felt when I saw his body laying in our bed. And then later that morning, there were a few more things that had happened, but later that morning, I was blow drying my hair, ready to go tell the children, because again, we thought he was going to be with us for another couple of weeks. So were going to be very shocked to find out that he had actually passed that over the night. And as I was blow drying my hair, I just remember closing my eyes and just trying to gather what I was going to say. And all of a sudden, Ian's voice was in my left ear. And it was as though he were standing right next to me. He's like, oh my God, Lisa, I love you, but it is so awesome here. And I just completely like dropped the blow dryer. I thought I was completely, again, taken by surprise, not prepared to be hearing my dead husband's voice right in my ear. But wow, that was the beginning of just my whole journey. I was a certified public accountant before all this happened. I was very in a box. Again, very religious, very like, we had the picket fence and the golden retriever and the 2 kids, and he had a corporate job. And wow, my whole life just crumbled. I mean, in so many ways, but at the same time, I always say it was the best thing that ever happened to me because it woke me up to life. He's still with me. That was 18 years ago. And he's guided me with not only my second marriage, which has since ended, but again, I'm so grateful for that. And also with my children. And he's still with me every day.
Well, Lisa, I always kind of get chills when I hear you tell this story because it is so incredible in so many ways. So first of all, I know this happened a very long time ago, and you and I both believe that this is not the end and the other side is so much better than anything we can even imagine. But I always want to say, I'm sorry for your loss because it's still a physical loss. Even though we know where somebody is, we still physically miss them. I heard once that it takes 2 years for all of the cells in your body to be completely replaced. And those cells have a remembrance, like a missing somebody. And so it can really take a full 2 years to heal from a physical loss, despite the fact that you have the spiritual connection. So I'm sorry for that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And it is interesting because even now, I mean, 18 years later, there will be some times that I just get overcome with emotion or just like, why did this happen? But like you said, I know there's something bigger going on here that I don't understand. And so I just keep trusting and just trust the process.
Well, I have so many questions about that experience that I have been dying to ask you ever since I heard the story the first time. So the first thing I would like to ask you is, what did the angels look like to you?
Great question. Well, as I remember, it's like it's all shimmer. There was lots and lots of shimmer sparkles. And it's so interesting because I'm just now putting this together. I am like, when I do get my nails done, I just want glitter. I'm such a glitter girl now. And I was not that way before, but I think it's because that's really what the angels were. They were just pure essence beings of glitter and light, and just the unconditional love is the biggest thing that just, it's so difficult to put into words because there's really nothing like that here on this planet Earth. But to be escorted with them and just, I mean, again, I don't necessarily know if they actually physically had their wings, their hands on my back, but just their escorting, just them being with me, I felt so complete and so loved. And so, I mean, I did not want to leave. When I got up there, I am like, I do not want to go back to planet Earth. I mean,
Yes, I
so
know
anyway,
that feeling.
I guess they weren't really, I mean, I don't want to say they were like, they didn't depict themselves necessarily as the angels with the wings and all that, but yet it's almost indescribable. But unconditional love and lots of glitter and light.
So you and I both believe that we have guardian angels, and we also have archangels that we can call on for guidance. Do you know who these angels were to you? Did you have a sense of that?
Well, I had been channeling angels. Again, this was all, I didn't talk to anybody really about my spiritual life during the time my husband was sick, because I was taken and given an angel reading that absolutely, that's what flipped the switch on for me and made me start going down this path. And so I had these two angels, Bertra and Zeta, and they were the ones that I channeled every day too. And I really believe those are my two guardian angels, and they were the ones that escorted me that day.
Wow, that's incredible. Okay.
And I also want to add, I do truly believe that I was given divine dispensation. That's what I like to call it, because I think that had I thought he went to hell, I just don't think I could have carried on this planet Earth. I think I would have been so distraught. I mean, who knows what would have happened, but I truly believe that the universe, source, God, whatever you want to call that's greater than us, really said Lisa needs a little vision so that she can really keep going.
Okay, the next question I have for you is about the arena of souls. So I'm picturing that you're up on this ledge and you've got your angels around you and you're looking down in that courtyard. And you said these souls are gathering. So first of all, can you describe what these souls look like? Did they have a human form, a light form, and did you recognize any of them?
Another great question. I did not recognize any of them, other than I knew that they were Ian's soul family and that we had obviously an overlap of soul family, but I didn't recognize them as individual souls that I knew. Again, I was 37 and I still had 3 living grandparents. So I had only lost one grandparent when I was much younger, when I was 9. So I think maybe that was part of it, is I really didn't have any known human souls on the other side that I maybe would have recognized. And as far as their appearance, again, it was not angelic. They were light beings, kind of light entities, but they were definitely distinct and separate, and just so many. So it was such an exciting, and I think that's really what I was feeling, was more their energy and their excitement and of welcoming Ian home. And yeah, it was really amazing.
Wow. So because you had that very religious upbringing and you had this idea in your mind of what heaven would appear like, do you feel that when people have an experience like a near-death experience, that they actually experience whatever they think that they're going to experience? You think that that factors into why your experience was like that? Because of course, when we listen to near-death experience interviews, they have varied experiences about what the other side looks like.
Yeah. And again, I do believe, and this again, I'm not here to tell anybody what to believe or not believe. My experience was that I was given the vision of what I believed it to be, because otherwise it wouldn't make sense. If I was taken to a Zen Buddhist monastery and seeing Ian walked into there, I think just my human brain would have been very dismissive and not been open to receiving it in that particular way. However, if a Zen Buddhist monk were to go up and see my little pictorial of what heaven was, that again would be difficult to ingest or take in. And I've heard this from many other near-death experiencers, that they many times see what they kind of expect to see. And then as they go deeper, like people that have had really intense near-death experiences, they're taken to even further, they go beyond that initial representation. And I think that's what it is for me, was a representation of what heaven was, so I could more easily swallow it and accept it.
And is that experience similar to the way that you feel a dream where over time it fades?
Oh my God, no. Like this, I mean, when I start thinking about it, it is so palpable and so alive to this day. I mean, again, 18 years later, I can just so readily tap into that. Whereas I know I had a dream last night. I know I woke up this morning thinking, oh my gosh, what was in that dream again? And it just stayed. It's like grasping sand and it just falls through your fingers, right? This, I mean, I could go and write a 20-page description of what I experienced.